Cancel the wedding. Those were her exact words. No hesitation, no emotion, just instructions. I was standing barefoot in my kitchen midnight holding a fork full of cold risotto when the call came. Serafina's voice didn't crack. It didn't shake. It didn't even sound like the woman I spent 7 years building a future with. "Kellen's sick," she said. "I have to be there for him." Kellen. Her ex. The same man she swore was a closed chapter, irrelevant, erased. At first I waited for the backpedal, the part where she'd say I didn't mean it. The apology. The sanity check. But instead came something worse. Something final. If you can't accept this, if you won't obey, then stay alone, obey. The word split something in me that night. Not just the wedding. Not just the relationship. Something deeper. Something permanent. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just stared at the wall, realizing in real time, that everything I built around her wasn't real. Before we dive into today's story, take a moment to share where you're watching from. We love seeing how our stories bring people together from every corner of the world. Your thoughts and comments are what make this community so special, and we're truly grateful to have you here. If you haven't already, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story filled with drama, resilience, and unexpected twists. Now settle in, get comfortable, and maybe grab your favorite drink, because this is a tale you won't want to miss. Let's get started. There's something surreal about being the man everyone wants to be, while quietly realizing you might be the only one in the room holding your breath. I stood in the center of the Four Seasons Beverly Hills ballroom, a sea of polished marble, glimmering chandeliers and champagne towers, tall enough to make a statement, but not tall enough to block the view of people who came here to be seen. The elite were here, the tech titans, Hollywood's inner circle, and power players from every corner of finance. People who believed that success was measured by the height of your cufflinks and the weight of your last quarterly report. On paper, I fit right in. Billionaire. Self-made. A disruptor in the fintech world. Carter Ledger had redefined private wealth management, a quiet juggernaut whispered about behind closed conference doors and private jets. They called me the quiet powerhouse. The media liked to package me as a unicorn story, the Oregon kid who went from sleeping on a mattress in a rented studio to owning a penthouse overlooking every bank that once told him no. But none of that was what tonight was about. This was supposed to be a celebration. Our celebration. "Smile a little," Serafina whispered as her hand slid through the crook of my elbow, her fingers cold against my skin. "You're the groom-to-be, after all." I glanced sideways at her, forcing a half-smile. She was breathtaking. She always had been. A walking composite of every designer label that screamed old money, flawless skin, a custom Valentino gown, and that specific kind of polished ease that only people born into wealth could truly perfect. Serafina Malloy was the definition of curated beauty. To the crowd, we were aspirational. Look how far he's come. Look who he gets to marry. But beneath the glass and gold, something felt off. Something subtle, but there. It started with her phone. She'd checked it 3 times in the last 10 minutes. Not the casual kind of checking. Not boredom. Not curiosity. But something compulsive. Obsessive. I glanced down just as a notification lit the screen. I didn't need to read it. The name alone was enough to suck the air right out of the room for me. Kellen Ashford. There it was. A name I hadn't heard spoken in months, but one that had never fully left the shadow between us. Her ex. The hedge fund manager with a carefully curated Instagram lifestyle, a car collection that doubled as his personality, and a reputation for stepping on anyone between him and a higher profit margin. She had sworn he was irrelevant. A closed chapter. Serafina locked the phone like nothing happened. Turned back to the conversation with a group of real estate developers talking about a waterfront in Maui. Her laughter hit the air perfectly timed, perfectly hollow. And I did what I always did. I pushed it down. Told myself it was nerves. Pre-wedding jitters. Nothing more. But then came the moment, small but loud if you knew how to listen. I squeezed her hand gently. 4 days, I said, forcing the smile to meet my voice. 4 more days. Then it's real. She smiled back, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Yeah. It's perfect. Perfect. Except it wasn't. Her parents approached. Dr. Thaddeus Malloy, all bespoke tailoring and silver hair, clapped me on the back, like a man congratulating his newest acquisition. His wife Margot floated beside him like a couture ghost wrapped in pastel silk pearls, and the practiced smile of someone who could charm a crowd while gutting a person with a single sentence. Margot's lips curled as she glanced at me. Weddings are stressful, darling, but you'll survive. Hopefully. Thaddeus chuckled. You know, Liam, marriage is really about compromise, especially for men who didn't exactly grow up accustomed to our world. It wasn't the words. It was how they said them. Sugar on the tongue. Poison in the roots. I nodded polite and reminded myself to breathe. Cameras flashed. A journalist from Vanity Fair Weddings asked us to pose. Serafina slipped from my side to pose solo longer than she did with me. Then back to her phone, always back to her phone. When one of the reporters asked about the wedding, her answer stalled just half a beat too long. Oh, yes. It's coming together beautifully. The pause was quiet, but deafening. I could feel it. The crack behind the glass, the subtle fracture in something that was supposed to be unbreakable by now. I turned away for a moment, letting the conversation swirl around me. Waiters moved past with champagne. Someone laughed a little too loud by the piano. The chandelier overhead reflected perfectly in the marble floor, clean, polished, and hollow. And for a split second I caught my own reflection. Tailored Tom Ford tux, a watch that cost more than my parents' first house, a room full of people who knew my name. And yet, there it was. That gnawing, ugly question that had started weeks ago. The one I kept burying. If you have everything, why does it still feel like something's about to fall apart? Serafina's voice floated from across the room. Light, effortless. Excuse me, she laughed. I just need to check something quickly. The glow of her phone lit up her face as she slipped into the hallway. I stayed rooted, staring at her silhouette framed by the marble archway. Something twisted in my chest, sharp, heavy. I reached into my pocket fingertips, brushing against the velvet ring box. $7.2 million. Platinum, custom cut. Something designed to mean forever. But standing there watching her turn her back as she typed furiously into her phone, I couldn't shake it. The creeping certainty. That forever the one I thought I was buying, building, promising might not be real after all. Not with her. Not anymore. Cancel the wedding. She said it like she was asking me to pick up milk. No tremor, no hesitation. Just clinical. I stood there barefoot in my kitchen, staring at the marble countertop like it might somehow explain what the hell I just heard. My fork was still mid-air cold risotto halfway to my mouth, completely forgotten. The line was silent, except for her breathing shallow, controlled. Say that again. I said, my voice so quiet it almost didn't sound like me. Serafina inhaled sharply, but when she spoke, it was steady. Kellen's sick. Kellen, her ex. The ghost she swore was dead and buried. The man whose name hadn't been spoken in our house for over a year, not since she'd sworn to me that chapter was closed. I have to be there for him, she continued. I blinked, bracing my palm against the counter. Okay. For how long? There was a pause. A dangerous one. Then her answer dropped like a guillotine. I need you to cancel the wedding. For a second, I genuinely thought my phone glitched, or that I misheard. But no. The words sat there heavy, irreversible. You what? My mouth felt dry. Her tone didn't shift. I'm not coming back, Liam. Not right now. I need to be there for him. He's not well. And if you can't accept that, then maybe... Her voice faltered for a beat. Then something sharper slid in. Controlled. Hardened. Then maybe we shouldn't be together at all. I gripped the edge of the counter so hard my knuckles burned. Serafina, what are you saying right now? She didn't answer. Not right away. All I could hear was her breathing, rapid but held back like someone trying to act composed while holding back a panic attack or a lie. And then came the final blow. If you won't obey, then stay alone. Obey. The word sliced me open in a way I didn't even know was possible. Not compromise, not understand, not please. Obey. Like I was some stubborn child refusing to learn the lesson she had graciously decided for both of us. Like my pain was irrelevant, my opinion disposable, my heart thudded in my ears, but my voice came out flatter than I expected. Obey. Nothing from her. Obey. I repeated quieter this time. That's where we are. A shaky breath on the other end. Liam, it's complicated. You wouldn't understand. Try me. Silence. A longer inhale. This isn't about you, she said, her voice tight. It's about doing the right thing. The right thing? I echoed, stunned. You'll understand one day. Her voice softened, almost pitying. You're just too emotional right now to see the bigger picture. For a few seconds, I didn't even remember how to breathe. But I didn't beg. I didn't yell. I didn't ask what Kellen had or why it had to be her of all people. Somewhere deep in my bones, I knew this wasn't about sickness. It never was. I looked down at my hand, still gripping that stupid fork. Oil from the risotto glistened under the kitchen lights. The most expensive kitchen in Beverly Hills. Designed for dinner parties we never threw. For a life we curated for optics, not for living. A life that apparently was never real. 3 words left my mouth steady, surgical, final. I heard you. Then I hung up. My legs gave out just enough to force me onto the bar stool behind me. The next minute, maybe 5, maybe 10, dissolved into static. I sat there staring at the wall at the counter at absolutely nothing. Not thinking, not feeling, not yet. Then my phone vibrated again. I glanced down. Margot Malloy. I let it go to voicemail. I already knew what it was. The second it finished, another call. Dr. Thaddeus Malloy, voicemail. Then a third. Margot again. I pressed the screen, played the first one. Margot's voice filled the room, soaked in that upper crust cocktail of concern wrapped in condescension. Liam, darling, I know this must be hard for you, but I hope you realize how mature Serafina's decision is. True compassion, true selflessness, is rare. You of all people should understand that being there for someone in their darkest hour is more important than, well, any personal discomfort. The second voicemail clicked in automatically. Thaddeus now. Smooth, detached. A man used to delivering bad news wrapped in good intentions. Liam, I want to offer you some perspective. This isn't abandonment. This is love, the highest form of it. You're reacting emotionally, and that's understandable. But you must understand how noble this is. Supporting someone, even someone from the past, during a time of need, that is the truest demonstration of character. I let it play out, every word landing like a slap. My thumb hovered over delete. Then another voicemail from Margot. Liam, it's deeply disappointing that you aren't responding. You have to realize this is bigger than some superficial ceremony. It's not about a party or rings. It's about humanity. If you can't see that, then, well, perhaps this marriage wasn't meant to be. I didn't listen to the rest. My body moved before my mind caught up. First, the wedding website. Delete. I pulled it down in seconds. Canceled the guest list. Closed the registry. Gone. Then the rings. Both hers and mine sat in a leather box on my dresser. I walked straight to the safe, shoved them inside, and spun the lock shut. Then the suit. The tuxedo we'd tailored in Milan. Hung pristine in my closet, still wrapped in plastic. I didn't touch it, just stared at it, wondered if it would ever be worn, or if it had become the most expensive lesson of my life. Then my hands grabbed the corkboard by the home office. Our seating charts, table assignments, sticky notes that said, ask florist about second arrangement and check on band's contract. I ripped them all down one by one. The photo of us in Asheville, the one where we were smiling under autumn leaves, the one I always thought captured the beginning of our forever hit the floor, face down. I stood over it, breathing like I'd just run a marathon. Then I grabbed a trash bag. Every piece of it, the invitations, the save the dates, the reception favors the candle samples, all of it went in. Gone. At some point I realized my hands were shaking. I pressed them flat against the granite countertop, stared at the reflection of my own face. Then something inside me clicked. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to chase. I wasn't going to stand on the altar of someone else's choices waiting to be sacrificed for their virtue. If she could leave me like this, I could leave too, but on my terms. I grabbed my phone one last time. Blocked Serafina. Blocked Margot. Blocked Thaddeus. I opened my contacts, scrolled to the group chat labeled venue, florist, Spand, and typed effective. Immediately cancel all bookings under Carter Malloy wedding. No rescheduling, no refunds needed. Keep the deposit. This event no longer exists. Send. The phone buzzed once, twice, confirmation emails already trickling in. I stood there in a penthouse built for two and realized I didn't leave this apartment that night, but something in me did walk away. From her, from the version of me that thought loyalty was about bleeding for people who would never bandage the wound. She walked out. She chose someone else. And in doing so, she burned the bridge between us to ash. The morning after didn't feel real. There was no crash of grief, no violent sobbing, no dramatic collapse onto the marble floors of the penthouse. Just silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. I woke up in the same place I fell asleep, sitting upright on the couch, still in the clothes from last night, surrounded by the wreckage of what was supposed to be the happiest week of my life. A trash bag, stuffed with wedding decorations, sat half-zipped by the door. The velvet ring box was still on the counter lid, open like an empty casket. My phone was face down on the coffee table, I didn't touch it. I already knew what was waiting there. Missed calls, texts, probably more lectures disguised as wisdom from Margot and Thaddeus. I wasn't interested. I walked toward the window, and stared out at Beverly Hills. Everything looked the same. Perfect. Untouched. Morning sun pouring over manicured lawns. Teslas and Porsches gliding down palm-lined streets like nothing in the world had changed. Except everything had. I didn't belong here anymore. Maybe I never did. I walked to the bedroom, opened my closet, and pulled out a suitcase. Then another. Then a third. It wasn't rage. It wasn't panic. It was clinical. Mechanical. I folded clothes, packed essentials, 3 suits, a few pairs of jeans, dress shirts, sneakers, my watch collection. The rest, the tailored tux, the monogrammed robe with Carter Malloy stitched on the sleeve, stayed exactly where it was. Dead weight. In the office, I grabbed the folder labeled Property Bev Hills. My real estate attorney's card was clipped to the front. I stared at it for a moment, then pulled out my phone and dialed. Liam Carter, the voice on the other end, chirped, chipper. Always a pleasure. What can I do for you? I want the house gone, I said flat. Off market, discreet, private sale. I don't care about price, just clean. There was a pause. Are you sure? Do it. I hung up. Back at the kitchen counter, I opened my laptop. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment, just long enough to realize how absurd this was, how absurd all of it had always been. The wedding website, the press releases the articles about tech mogul marries heiress, all of it designed for public consumption. I deleted it, every piece of it, the Squarespace account, the shared Dropbox, the Google Doc with the seating chart, gone. Then the social media, Instagram delete, Twitter delete, LinkedIn wiped clean. Every trace of my association with the Malloys erased from the digital world like it never existed. For the first time in years, there was no curated image, no narrative to uphold, no power couple to perform. Just me. And that realization didn't sting the way I thought it would. It felt clean. Like ripping off a bandage and realizing the wound underneath had already started to scar. The phone buzzed again. A text. I didn't check it, but I saw the preview. Liam, we should talk. You're being unreasonable. Serafina, unreasonable. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was insane. She disappeared. She demanded obedience. She walked out 4 days before our wedding for her ex. And I was the one being unreasonable. Enough. I found the contact labeled Driver Elias, and texted, I need the car ready in 2 hours. Airport. One way. No follow-up. No explanation. I glanced around the penthouse, the granite counters we picked together, the wine fridge stocked with bottles she insisted we needed for entertaining the velvet sofa imported from Milan. It wasn't mine. Not really. It was hers. Their world. Their rules. And if they could leave me like this, I could leave too. But this time, not broken. Not begging. I grabbed the suitcases, wheeled them to the front door, and took one last look around. Keep the house, I muttered. Keep all of it. I locked the door behind me, but not because I was coming back. By the time the wheels of the private jet lifted off the tarmac, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Freedom. I didn't have a destination yet. Not really. Just anywhere that isn't Beverly Hills. But my mind kept circling back to one place, New York. Manhattan. The opposite of LA in every way. No fake smiles, no staged brunches, no sunset engagement shoots at the beach. Just noise, movement, Grit. People who didn't care about your last name, your Instagram followers, or which foundation your mother chaired. I stared out the window as California shrank behind me, and for the first time in days, the lump in my throat eased. When the plane landed at Teterboro, the air felt different, heavier, cleaner, real. I opened Zillow without even thinking and started scrolling. Tribeca. Soho. Anything far from corporate glass towers and influencer neighborhoods. I didn't want luxury. I wanted raw, honest, unpolished. A listing popped up. Industrial loft, Tribeca, as is, no renovations, cash buyers only. The pictures showed cracked concrete floors, exposed brick-rusted beams, and a window that probably hadn't closed properly since the 80s. Perfect. I called the number. 24 hours later, I was standing in the middle of it, the smell of dust, old oil, and forgotten dreams thick in the air. The agent smiled nervously. "It's got potential, but it's a real fixer. I'm not buying potential," I said, signing the papers. "I'm buying peace." The first few weeks were simple. Brutal, honest. A mattress on the floor, a folding chair, a camp stove balanced on a stack of moving boxes. I ripped out old drywall, tore up rotting floorboards, hauled debris down 3 flights of stairs because the elevator hadn't worked in years. It wasn't about money. God knows I could have hired a crew. This wasn't about efficiency. It was about making something with my own hands. About proving to myself that I could. I found a hardware store a few blocks away, bought a table saw, a workbench, sandpaper, wood glue. I built a table. A simple one. Rough edges, uneven legs. But when I stood back and looked at it, it was mine. Every flaw, every imperfection, mine. The next day, I made a bookshelf. Then a chair. Neighbors started noticing. One woman from the floor above came down, knocked, and asked if I could make a desk for her studio. "Sure," I said. "Why not?" She paid me in cash. Word spread. A man from the corner coffee shop ordered 3 tables for his remodel. Someone else wanted shelving. Ledger. Built wasn't a company yet. It wasn't anything official. Just me. Wood. Tools. Silence. And for the first time since Serafina's voice whispered, "Cancel the wedding," through my phone, the silence didn't hurt. It healed. It's strange how fast silence becomes home. 3 years. That's how long it's been since the phone call that split my life clean in half. Since I locked that apartment door in Beverly Hills and walked away from a version of myself I barely recognize now. The loft isn't a loft anymore. It's a home. A real one. The smell of sawdust lingers in the air, mixed with coffee-fresh linen and whatever dinner Evelyn happens to be cooking on any given night. Sunlight spills through the massive warehouse windows every morning, landing on handmade shelves, a dining table I built with my own hands, and a fireplace framed by brick older than my grandfather ever was. Ledger. Built isn't just a side project anymore. It's a name. A movement, if the interior design blogs are to be believed. Architects, restaurateurs, boutique hotels across New York and beyond, everyone suddenly wants the Ledger look. Industrial modern, handmade, built to last. Not mass-produced, not outsourced, not sterile. I never set out to build an empire. I just wanted peace. But funny thing about peace, it has a way of growing into power when you guard it well enough. And the best part, I didn't do it alone. Evelyn walked into my life one rainy Thursday looking for a custom desk for her architecture studio. She was the opposite of Serafina in every way that mattered, low maintenance, quietly brilliant, not born into power but someone who built it herself. Our conversations about wood grains and joinery turned into coffee. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into this. Now, 3 years later, there's no performance, no curated image, just us. A home. 2 kids, Arlo's 6, Mila's 3, and both of them have the same crooked grin Evelyn gets whenever she's caught mid-thought but doesn't want to admit it. Evelyn's voice floats in from the living room. Liam, where's the Phillips head top drawer right side? I wipe my hands on a rag, step back from the shelving unit I'm building for the nursery, and glance toward the kitchen. Mila's sitting cross-legged on the floor, coloring. Arlo's tapping away on a Lego contraption that's definitely not structurally sound, but might qualify as abstract art. This is it. This is the real wealth no one tells you about, the kind that doesn't show up on Forbes lists. Then the email hits. It's subtle. No subject line. No urgency marker. Just a name in the sender box that drags my stomach straight to the floor. Kellen Ashford. For a second, I don't open it. Just stare. The name alone feels like stale air. Heavy. Pressurized. Something I vacuum-sealed 3 years ago and shoved onto a shelf I swore I'd never touch again. But curiosity's a nasty little thing. I click. Liam, I assume you've heard. It's public now. Call me. No signature, no context, no apology. I close the laptop. I already know. I've seen the headlines bubbling in the financial sections over the past 6 months. Quiet at first. Then louder. Kellen Ashford's hedge fund collapses amid wire fraud investigation. SEC files charges for insider trading, money laundering, securities fraud. Sources claim dozens of investors scammed out of millions. The dominoes are falling. And fast. I check my other email, one that isn't linked to Ledger Built or my personal life. The one still tied to the finance world from before. The inbox is a graveyard of alerts. Margot Malloy's wellness empire faces federal investigation for tax fraud, grant embezzlement, and securities misrepresentation. Her assets are frozen. Foundations shuttered. Luxury brand dissolved. Thaddeus isn't spared either. His medical license is under review. 2 wrongful death suits linked to his private practice malpractice allegations buried for years, now dragged into the sunlight. It's not just a fall. It's a free fall. Public. Ugly. Irreversible. A familiar number flashes on my phone. I stare at it without answering. It's a 310 area code. Beverly Hills. I already know who it is. It buzzes twice. Then again. Then stops. Evelyn glances over, eyes narrowing. Everything okay? I slide the phone face down. Yeah. It's just noise from the past. But it isn't just noise. Not really. It's the sound of ghosts clawing at the door of a life they never thought I'd have. The next day, it happens. A knock. Not frantic, not hesitant. Just 3 steady raps on the steel-framed glass door of the loft. I set down my drill wipe, my palms on my jeans, and glance out the window. 4 figures stand there. Even from here I can tell it's them. Serafina, Margot, Thaddeus, and of course Kellen. They look smaller than I remember. Not physically. Spiritually. The perfect sheen they carried like armor back in Beverly Hills is gone. There's a weathered, almost cracked glaze over them now. Serafina looks older. Not in the way time naturally does to people, more like the way regret ages someone twice as fast. For a long second, I just stand there, watching them, a voice behind me. Arlo's. Dad, someone's here. I turn. He's holding a half-finished model airplane in his hands, his face scrunched in curiosity. Yeah, buddy. I see. He steps beside me, peers out the window, then tilts his head. Who are they? I kneel down eye level with him, hand on his shoulder. Look him straight in the face. No one important son. It lands like a hammer. A line rehearsed by life itself. Not said out of bitterness, not even anger, just truth. I pull the door open but don't step aside. Don't offer a greeting. Just stand. Present. Immovable. Serafina's eyes flick past me, into the loft, past the foyer, to the hallway lined with framed photos, Evelyn reading to the kids on the porch, Arlo's first day of school, Mila running through a sunflower field. Her eyes dart to the kitchen island, to the living room where furniture stamped with my ledger-built logo sits like silent trophies. A life. A real one. Not a curated fantasy. Not something for show. Kellen shifts his weight. His arms are crossed, defensive, arrogant. But it doesn't fit him anymore. Not standing here. Not like this. Margot blinks like she's trying to reconcile the man standing in front of her with the man they all wrote off. Thaddeus coughs, hands folded behind his back, defaulting to that brittle diplomatic silence doctors use when they have no good news to give. No one speaks. The rain starts soft at first, tapping against the metal awning, filling the silence like background percussion to the worst play ever staged. I fold my arms, let the silence choke them out first. Then finally Serafina's voice, low, hesitant. Liam, I didn't mean to just show up like this. I raise an eyebrow. Yet here you are. She swallows hard. I needed to see you. Why my voice doesn't rise, doesn't tremble. It's quiet, measured, sharper for it. What exactly did you think you'd find? Her mouth opens, but no words. It's Margot who jumps in, ever the fixer. We didn't come to cause a scene. Her voice falters. We just found your address and I cut her off, which none of you should have. Thaddeus steps forward, clears his throat. Liam, please, we've fallen on hard times. And there it is. The punchline. The storm breaks harder. The sound of it fills every crack in the silence. Serafina shifts her coat, soaked through her hair, sticking to her face. But her gaze keeps drifting back inside like she's realizing in real time that the life she left behind didn't freeze. It didn't wait. It flourished. Without her. I don't say a word, just step back half an inch, not enough to invite, not enough to slam the door, just enough to say, go ahead, try me. Kellen's jaw works. You think this makes you better than us? I tilt my head. Calm. Controlled. No. A pause. But it does mean I survived without you. And that lands exactly the way it's supposed to. The silence stretched so long it stopped feeling like awkwardness and started feeling like confirmation. Confirmation that they weren't here for closure. They weren't here for apologies. They were here because they thought somehow unbelievably that the man they left behind was still waiting for them. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, leaning just enough to make it clear this wasn't an invitation inside. Serafina finally broke. Her voice was thinner now, less polished. Liam, I never thought I'd have to. She stumbled, corrected. I never imagined it would be like this. I didn't flinch. Like what? Standing at the door of a life you don't belong to anymore. Her lips pressed into a line. She glanced back at Margot, who was wringing the strap of her designer handbag so tight her knuckles went white. Thaddeus stared somewhere over my shoulder, pretending this wasn't beneath him, And Kellen wore that same brittle sneer that once passed for confidence, but it didn't fit anymore. Not here. I didn't say anything else. I let them cook in the discomfort. Arlo appeared again barefoot, holding his model airplane, his brows scrunched. Dad, who are they? I rested my hand on his shoulder. Didn't even hesitate. No one important, son. Serafina flinched like I'd slapped her. Margot's mouth opened, but no words came. Kellen scoffed, but didn't even look me in the eye. Thaddeus shifted, cleared his throat like a man buying time he didn't have. Arlo. I said, my voice soft but steady. Go grab Mila and take her to the back. Mom will be out in a minute. Okay. He darted off, sneakered feet thumping on the hardwood. And just like that, my focus was back on them. Clean. Surgical. Margot was the first to fake composure. Liam, we didn't come to dredge up the past. She searched for words that might pass as humility but came up empty. We came because things have been difficult. Difficult, I echoed. Fascinating word. How difficult, she swallowed. Kellen's firm collapsed. Completely. It's all over the papers, I assume you've seen it. Oh, I have. Kellen's dealing with legal matters, she continued quickly, as if glossing over felony charges was a PR strategy. And, unfortunately, the Foundation has faced certain challenges, too. Challenges. You mean the federal investigation for tax fraud and embezzlement that landed? Hard. Thaddeus coughed sharply. Now wait a minute. No. I cut him off. You don't get to step into my home or my life and set the tone. Not anymore. His mouth snapped shut. Serafina shifted forward, her hands shaking but trying desperately to hide it. Liam, listen, it's not like we came here expecting anything specific. It's just... She looked back at her parents, then at Kellen, then at me. We fell on hard times. Things fell apart. And I guess we thought maybe we could talk. I stared at her long enough for it to get uncomfortable. Talk, I said. Flat. Cold. About what? Her throat bobbed. About us. About maybe reconnecting. Starting over. You've clearly done well. That did it. I actually laughed. A short, sharp, stunned sound. Not cruel, just disbelief. You mean, come back into the life you threw away? Her eyes welled up. Whether it was regret, shame, or just the sting of hearing the truth out loud, I didn't care. You said I should obey. I reminded her quiet but cutting. You said, and I quote, "If you can't accept it, maybe we shouldn't be together." She opened her mouth. I was young. I was confused. No, I corrected. You were old enough to know exactly what you were doing. You chose, and when you did, you made sure there was no way back. Kellen crossed his arms tighter, jaw clenched. We don't have to stand here for this. You don't. I agreed. Door's right there. He shifted, but Margot cut in quickly. Liam, surely you're not suggesting that, after everything, after all our history, there's no our history, I snapped. There's history. And then there's now. They aren't the same. Thaddeus tried for diplomacy. Look, you've made a wonderful life here. We can see that. But surely you can understand, life throws curveballs. Things happen. People make mistakes. Is that what this was? I asked, narrowing my gaze. A mistake, Serafina's voice wobbled. Yes. No, I said, voice sharp as broken glass. It wasn't. A mistake is dropping a glass, forgetting an appointment, You didn't trip and accidentally walk back to your ex 4 days before our wedding. You didn't accidentally tell me to cancel everything and obey like I was some disposable footnote in your story. She blinked rapidly. I didn't think... You didn't think I'd survive it? I finished for her. That's what you mean. You thought you were walking away from something weak, replaceable, something that would stay frozen until you decided to come back. Margot bristled, trying to salvage the tone. You've clearly done well for yourself. Remarkably well. We're proud of that. Proud, I barked out a humorless laugh. You're proud of the man you tried to erase. Liam. Serafina's voice dropped to a whisper. I never imagined you'd be happy without me. And there it was. The quiet, rotten truth of it. I know I said, calm, because you weren't the happiness, Serafina. You were the lesson. Her knees almost buckled. Her mouth opened like she wanted to protest, but nothing came out. Kellen exploded first. You act like you've never made mistakes, like you're so perfect now. Look around. You think some furniture shop in a house full of pictures makes you better than us? I tilted my head. No. But it does mean I survived without having to destroy anyone else to do it. He stepped forward, fists tight, but Thaddeus grabbed his arm, holding him back. Stop! The older man hissed. Stop embarrassing yourself. Evelyn appeared in the hallway just then, barefoot, holding Mila against her hip. Her gaze flicked from me to the 4 strangers on our doorstep. No words, no judgment. Just quiet presence. Strength. She didn't say a thing. She didn't need to. Her being there grounded, steady, holding the child that represented everything I built after the storm was the loudest statement anyone could make. Serafina saw it too. She stared at Evelyn, then at the photographs on the wall behind me. The evidence, proof that life didn't freeze when she walked away. It grew. It thrived. Margot opened her mouth, maybe to pivot, maybe to beg. I raised a hand before a sound left her lips. No, I said. Quiet. Absolute. You don't belong here. Not in this house. Not in this life. You walked out. All of you. You made your choice. Serafina's lip trembled. I thought maybe we could. You thought wrong. A beat. Another. The rain tapping against the steel awning filled the space they couldn't. I stepped back just far enough to deliver the final blow. This conversation is over. Evelyn stepped closer, standing beside me now. Her free hand slid into mine. We didn't need to speak. Our fingers said everything. Go, I added, before you embarrass yourselves any further. Kellen muttered something under his breath, bitter hollow, but didn't stay to explain it. Margot turned first, head high, but shoulders sagging. Thaddeus followed. Serafina lingered a second longer, as if waiting for a crack in my face. A hesitation, a softness that wasn't there. It never would be. Not now. Not ever. They walked back into the rain. I shut the door, and it didn't feel like slamming a door in someone's face. It felt like locking a chapter, permanently. The door clicked shut behind them, sealing something so much bigger than the conversation. It wasn't just a boundary. It was a burial, a line in concrete between who I used to be and who I became the minute they walked out of my life. I stood there for a moment, hand still on the lock, just listening. The muffled rain, the sound of my own breathing, the distant giggle of Mila chasing Arlo down the hallway, Evelyn's quiet footsteps retreating toward the kitchen. No weight in my chest, no ache, no regret, nothing left. And God, it felt good. I walked toward the balcony, sliding the glass doors open just enough to let in the crisp Manhattan air. Rain glazed the city, turning every rooftop silver, every window reflection sharper. I grabbed my coffee mug off the railing, the one Evelyn got me last Christmas, that read "Built Not Bought," and leaned forward. From this height, the world shrank. People became dots. Cars just noise. Chaos turned aesthetic. My phone buzzed. I glanced down. A headline notification. Breaking Kellen Ashford, indicted for wire fraud, securities fraud, and money laundering. Faces 25 years in federal prison. I smiled. Small. Quiet. Another alert stacked underneath it. Margot Malloy's wellness empire collapses amid tax fraud investigation. Assets frozen. Foundation shuttered. I scrolled. Couldn't help it. Thaddeus Malloy suspended by state medical board. Malpractice lawsuit involving 2 wrongful deaths. Gains traction. It was a full collapse. Not slow, not private, not whispered behind closed doors the way they always handled their mistakes in the past. This was loud, public, unforgiving. I didn't toast to it, didn't cheer, didn't call anyone. I just sipped my coffee, watched. Evelyn appeared behind me, sliding her arms around my waist. Her chin rested on my shoulder. "It's everywhere," she murmured, scrolling her own phone. "It's trending globally." "Yeah." I nodded, voice calm. "It is." She leaned closer. "How do you feel?" I exhaled slowly. "Like watching a fire you didn't start, but you always knew was coming." She chuckled under her breath. "Not cruel, just honest. You didn't light it, you just moved far enough away that you wouldn't get burned when it caught." "Exactly." Arlo's voice echoed from the living room. "Dad, look what I made." I turned. He sprinted over barefoot, holding up a sheet of paper, grinning so wide his cheeks puffed out. It was a drawing, crooked lines, bold crayon strokes of our house. Our family. The loft, the big windows, the rooftop. Evelyn standing by the kitchen island, Mila playing on the floor, Arlo himself waving with both hands. At the bottom, written in messy, oversized letters, "Our home. Built by Dad. Loved by all." Something tightened in my chest. Not pain, not grief, something heavier, more permanent. I knelt, pulled him into a hug so tight he squealed. "This is the best thing anyone's ever made for me, buddy. Even better than the big dining table. Way better." Later that night, after the kids were tucked in and the rain tapered into a low drizzle, Evelyn and I sat out on the rooftop patio. A bottle of wine between us. Blankets draped over our shoulders. The city glowing in every direction. I scrolled through the headlines, reading the fallout in real time. Kellen was arrested at a country club mid-round of golf. Classic. Couldn't script it better. A federal agent in full windbreaker gear cuffed him right there on the 9th hole. Margot had her assets frozen, not just the foundation, but personal accounts properties in Malibu Aspen and Lake Como. Even the art she bragged about owning on every Instagram post gone. Seized. Liquidated. Thaddeus tried to play dignified until the malpractice stories hit the New York Times front page. Turns out covering up botched surgeries and unethical prescription schemes only lasts as long as your lawyers are paid up. Once the money dried, the walls fell. Serafina wasn't spared either. Her divorce from Kellen was now public. Her name plastered across every gossip site, Beverly Hills heiress left penniless as Ashford's Ponzi scheme unravels. Evelyn traced her fingers along the rim of her wine glass. "Do you think They actually thought you'd help? I shook my head. I think people like that never believe the fire will reach them. They think the world's a house they own, that they can leave and come back whenever they want, that doors never lock unless they decide to lock them. She tilted her head. And ours? I smiled, squeezing her hand. Ours locked the day you walked in. She leaned her head against my shoulder. No regrets. None. I turned, pressing a kiss to her hair. Because this wasn't built from what they gave me. It was built from what they left behind. In the days that followed, the collapse didn't stop. More stories broke. Margot's fake charity scandals. Offshore accounts. A wellness retreat in Tulum that was actually a front for tax laundering. Kellen's name was stripped from every partnership. Investors filed lawsuits in the hundreds of millions. His mugshot leaked. Public. Permanent. The man who once mocked me for not being high enough on the ladder was now on every financial news banner in the country, not for his wealth, but for the fraud that built it. Thaddeus's license was revoked. His assets seized. Class action suits formed like vultures in the legal system. Every one of them bankrupt. Not just in money, in reputation, in legacy. Meanwhile, in our home. Mornings started the same way, Mila dragging her blanket down the hallway, rubbing her eyes, climbing into our bed. Arlo already in the kitchen, pouring too much cereal into his bowl, pretending he knew how to use the espresso machine. Evelyn pacing with a tablet under her arm, sketching kitchen layouts for a new client. Ledgerbilt grew, quietly, subtly. A waiting list of 18 months. Restaurants in Copenhagen. Galleries in Tokyo. Hotels in Morocco. People didn't just buy the furniture. They bought the story. The resilience in every grain of wood. Not revenge, not even redemption. Just life. Built. On purpose. A few nights later, we stood on the balcony. Evelyn handed me a cup of tea. Do you ever look back? I sipped. Let the warmth settle. Not really. Not anymore. She studied me. Not even a little I thought about it. About the man I was standing in that Beverly Hills kitchen, fork in hand, stunned, as Serafina said, cancel the wedding. I remembered the cold knot in my stomach, the disbelief, the ache. Then I looked around. The rooftop garden, the string lights, the windows glowing warm behind us. 2 kids sleeping inside. A woman beside me who never asked me to be anything but real. No, I said quietly. I don't look back. Because what's ahead is better than anything I ever thought was possible. She smiled. Soft. Certain. Good. I turned to her. Do you regret it? This life. Not for 1 second, she said. Because this is the life we built on purpose, not the one we settled for. I pulled her closer, our fingers intertwined. The city pulsed around us, endless, alive. Somewhere out there, the Malloys were still watching their empire turn to ash, still wondering how it happened, still searching for someone to blame. But it didn't matter. Not anymore. The fire wasn't ours, the door was locked. Permanently. There's something about finality that people never warn you about. It doesn't come with fireworks. No dramatic swell of music. No applause. Just quiet. A kind of quiet that feels heavier than noise ever could. It had been a week since that knock. A week since Serafina, Margot, Thaddeus, and Kellen stood on my doorstep, faces soaked not just by rain, but by the unmistakable realization that time didn't wait for them. That the door they slammed years ago, it stayed shut. I hadn't heard from them since. No texts, no calls, Nothing. The message landed exactly as it was meant to. Not now. Not ever. I stood on the rooftop that night, same as I did every night since. Evelyn was inside, tucking Mila into bed. Arlo sat on the couch, legs folded under him, building what had to be his third Lego spaceship today. The sound of laughter, the kind that only happens when kids feel safe, floated through the windows, warm against the hum of the city below. I looked at the handmade door that led from the patio back into the loft. Ran my hand over the wood grain. Every line, every imperfection, every knot. A reminder that things don't have to be flawless to be permanent. I traced the bolt lock. Clicked it shut. That sound, small, simple, felt bigger than anything those 4 people had ever given me. Because this lock wasn't just a security measure. It was a statement. You don't get to burn everything down and come back when the ashes don't serve you anymore. Not in this house. Not in this life. I stepped back inside, joining Evelyn on the couch. She handed me a mug of tea peppermint and curled her legs underneath herself, leaning her shoulder against mine. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. That's the thing about people who love you for who you are, not for who they can mold you into presence, is enough. I glanced at her then toward the hallway where the kids' voices were still echoing. You know, I used to think closure was something you had to get from the people who hurt you. She turned curious. Yeah, I nodded. I thought one day I'd get the apology, the explanation, the grand gesture that made it all make sense. I smiled, not bitter, not sad, just wiser. But it's not like that. Closure's not something they give you. It's something you build, nail by nail, choice by choice. Her hand slid into mine. Warm. Certain. Exactly. I squeezed her fingers. They thought I was waiting for them to come back, waiting to be chosen again. But I wasn't waiting, I was building. She smiled. You always were. The next morning was like any other. Mila crawled into our bed at 6:20 sharp, blanket dragging behind her thumb, in her mouth. Arlo was already up, perched at the kitchen counter, sketching some wild idea for a treehouse he was convinced we were going to build this summer. Evelyn floated between the stove and her tablet, balancing breakfast with blueprints. And me, I stood there in the doorway, coffee in hand, watching it all. The sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, catching the edges of the shelves. I built the dining table I sanded by hand, the framed photos lining the wall, snapshots of a life made not from rescue, but from resilience. This was wealth. This was success. Not the bank account, not the square footage, but this. A home, a family, a life that nobody handed me. A life built not in spite of the people who walked out, but because of it. I picked up my phone, not to check messages, none from them would come. Not to scroll headlines, their collapse was yesterday's news now. I opened the Photos app, scrolled to a picture Arlo drew last week. Our home, built by Dad, loved by all. I smiled, locked the screen, set it as my background. Some ghosts never stop knocking. They dress up as regret, as nostalgia, as desperation. But they only haunt if you let them in. And I never would. Not now. Not ever. That night, after the kids were asleep after dinner, was cleaned up after Evelyn slid into her side of the bed. I stood one last time at the patio door. Ran my fingers over the wood. The lock. A final whisper to the version of me who once stood in a Beverly Hills kitchen holding a fork of cold risotto, listening to the woman he loved say, Cancel the wedding. Obey. Stay alone. To that man I whispered, "You don't live here anymore." I slid the bolt shut. Click. The door was locked. Forever. Sometimes life has a cruel way of teaching what comfort never could. It's easy to believe that love means holding on, that loyalty means waiting, that forgiveness means opening the same doors that once broke you. But the truth is, not every person who walks into your life is meant to stay, and not every ending deserves a second beginning. There's power in walking away, not in anger, not in bitterness, but in choosing peace over chaos, dignity over desperation, and self-respect over recycled pain. Some doors are meant to close. Some chapters deserve to end without applause. And sometimes the greatest revenge isn't proving anyone wrong. It's building a life so whole, so joyful, so untouchable, that they realize they were never the center of it after all. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, share where you're tuning in from. We love seeing how these stories connect people around the world. And if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story about resilience, redemption, and the power of choosing yourself.